Were there any, sorry, I'll continue saying, but were there any other themes in his life that you were very conscious of wanting to emphasise in the film, following on from that?
There's an awful lot of themes. Yeah, it's thematically very rich. I would hope there's an enthusiasm for popular culture, there's an enthusiasm for the ordinary things in life, there's the journey that he went on from his social life, his social status where he began to where he went all the way down to the bottom and had to sort of reconstruct himself. There's his love of nature, there's his love of Englishness, there's his hatred of the BBC, there's all sorts of things.
There's a question there.
Yeah. You gave considerable emphasis to his, or devoted considerable time relationship with Eiley. With Solomon, apart from those, a complete absence to reference to any other relationships, either with women or close male friendships, or even his parents, who appeared as just very fleetingly. So, do you feel that was because there weren't any such relationships, and that his parents was very remote, or why did you choose to not focus on the?
No, I totally understand. In fact, barely. His Eileen never says a word in the film. Neither does Sonia. So even those relationships are very, very faintly sketched. And it was a decision we made quite early on because he doesn't write about them. We were going to use his own words, and that limited us to where the story could go. If you were making a full-scale drama, you'd make a very different film. You'd have him really. You talk a lot more about those relationships, but we didn't because we just didn't have the raw material. We didn't have those in Orwell's own words.
Any other questions, Chris?
And did Orwell have any political affiliations? I mean, obviously broadly he was of the left, and then presumably towards the end, particularly after 1984, by the left. But did he actually have any active political affiliation?
Yes, he had lots of active political affiliations, and they changed, and so yes, he did. What he didn't, a lot of people try to sort of co-opt Orwell. A lot of political organisations try to co-opt Orwell. A lot of people say Orwell would have done this. It's actually quite difficult to pin down exactly precisely what were his political views. It's almost a moral view he has of the world rather than a political one. So again, we didn't really talk about his association with the Communist Party or this party or this group of writers who were associated with that. There are whole books written about that actually, and they get very confusing because those are very choppy waters at that time.
You showed him advocating revolution in the film. Did he do much of that?
Yes, I mean he really believed in that, and there were some people who believed that when he came back to Britain, came back to England after he'd been in Spain, he was going to start a revolution here. That was what he thought would be the only way of saving England. And
did he not realise how foolish that was?
I think he did realise how foolish that was, and that's what turned him into a patriot and got behind the war effort. But prior to that, he was out there, he helped buy a printing press, which is the first thing that all revolutionaries do. And, but it's all murky stuff, and some people would say this, some people would say otherwise. But he certainly believed in revolution.
I think one of the other interesting things about that episode is that a lot of journalists who admire Orwell admire the integrity, and actually in the film you have the bit where he says, actually I was wrong about that, I was silly to think it was going to happen at all. Yeah. So I mean, I thought that was quite nice.
All people who are intellectually confident, they have that ability to be absolutely certain they're right at the time and then realise they were wrong later and feel right again. And I think that's a good way of thinking.
That part where he's stirring up revolution actually reminded me of a scene in Coming Up for Air, which is, I think, unfairly neglected as one of Orwell's great works, where he talks about going to these meetings and the run-up to the war, outbreak of war in 1939, and people standing on the podium. We heard him later on in the film sort of castigating those people who stood up there and just switched autopilot on and started chanting the same old slogans. But you were talking about the sort of milestones in his life, which you then built the film around. I mean, this may be, again, a slightly obvious question, but what do you think they are? Do you regret leaving any of the other things out?
I don't know if I really regret leaving anything out. I mean, we had to leave out the novels because we couldn't get the film rights to them. I do know that we worked out what I felt would be the milestones into, how we could mark them. Frankly, off the top of my head, I can't tell you what we worked out those milestones to be. But there were obvious episodes. There's he goes off to Burma and then he comes back and he starts writing, and then finally he has success when he goes with Wigan on the road to Wigan Pier, and he becomes energised and politicised by that process. And then there's another period of his life when he does get turned into a revolutionary in Spain. And then there's another period of his life where he has to conform to to defeat fascism. And then there's a final period of his life when he sits down to write novels. And I think those were the episodes that we worked with.
In looking at the sort of legacy of Orwell now, whoever may be co-opting it or not, which of those do you think was most critical to making him the Orwell that we now know?
I don't understand. Sorry.
So, I mean, which of those episodes in his life do you think was most crucial in turning him into George Orwell?
Oh, well, I think that when I list those episodes, I think they're all the crucial episodes. I think they're all essential.
Any final questions before we wrap up?
I have one for you and
Okay.
Chris isn't anymore.
Do you want to?
Well, it's really about the Orwell Prize and the Orwell estate, and can you tell us, how is the Orwell Prize funded? I mean, what's the sort of context of it, and so on, and the scope of it, and just really out of curiosity, the Orwell estate presumably only has another 10 years, is it, to run?
I think it's something like that.
How is that set up?
I can't tell you too much about the estate, although Bill Hamilton, who's the literary executive, is on some of the boards that run the Orwell Prize. The prize was set up by Sir Bernard Crick, who I mentioned earlier, one of the great biographers of Orwell, who was asked by Sonia Orwell to write the first sort of official biography of Orwell, and Bernard said, well, towards the end of his life, Orwell used to give money to young writers. Would you be willing to do that? And she declined. So Bernard gave the hardback rights to his book in trust. And with David Astor, who we saw in that film, and a few other friends of Orwell, came up with the Orwell Memorial Fund. Now, initially that supported projects from young writers in universities, it supported a few lectures. Eventually, because the sort of projects for young writers didn't really have a discernible end, Bernard set up the prize in its current form in 1994, that is Book Prize and the Journalism Prize, and we added a Blog Prize last year. The prize is now run by the Media Standards Trust, which is a media think and do tank, by Political Quarterly, which is a long-standing British academic journal which Bernard Crick also had a hand in running, and the Orwell Trust, which is what Bernard set up. And there's a very close relationship with the estate. Reuters also gives some money towards it, and one of our great supporters is Richard Blair, who you saw portrayed in that film, slightly older.
Who was here last
year. He was here last year,
Yeah.
yes. There is an interview with him on our website if you want to watch that. Before we go, is there anything you want to add, Chris?
No, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Hope you enjoyed it.
Well, in that case, Chris, thank you very much indeed for a wonderful couple of hours, and I hope everybody else has enjoyed it, and thank you very much for coming as well on such a lovely evening. Thank you.